Hi, everyone. This is the story of Juneteenth and why it is a celebration for a melting pot for all the cultures in the United States. Moreover, Juneteenth is a symbolic time vault that holds our history, ourselves, our relationship with others, our unity, and our love for all people. In today's offering, I will cover an introduction honoring ancestors, purpose, intention, what is Juneteenth, history, injustice continues, how Juneteenth is celebrated, in gratitude to all. I'm Debbie Flickinger, president of Head Over Heels for Caring Sustainability. I'm excited to be here with you. We will look at Juneteenth, the heroes who led what has become an ongoing revolution. Later, we will touch on the need to continue the fight for our rights 160 years later. Let's talk about soul. In reflecting upon Juneteenth, I found that the word soul as an acronym held a lot of meaning for me. S is the self and soul of African Americans everywhere. O represents the other, those who have othered us for so long, and those whom we have othered ourselves. U brings us to unity. We must unite as one people. All people, regardless of race, gender, or religious beliefs. L is for love. We cannot thrive or survive unless we learn to love unconditionally. In other words, we must learn to let go of our attachments to outcome and love from the soul. Before we continue, let's take a moment to honor the ancestors. We must honor the past and at the same time strive to create a more caring and sustainable world. Ancestors, we are grateful for the gifts you've shared with us through time. We offer you gratitude. The purpose of the offering is to remind us that this is a day to transform, reflect, educate, enlighten, and sustain our capacities as human beings. The intention is to embrace Juneteenth as a way to inform, reflect, and transform our understanding about the struggles of people of all colors. What is Juneteenth? Juneteenth is a celebration of the end of slavery more than 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed by Abraham Lincoln on January 1, 1863 in the United States. The book Juneteenth, the story behind the celebration, Gotham 2021, explains that Juneteenth comes from the month of June and the 19th day. This day is important to the soul of humankind. Moreover, Juneteenth is important for everyone of all ages and ethnic groups. We invite everyone, everywhere, to bring their voices to the table and join in celebrating Juneteenth as a shared celebration of freedom and unity. Juneteenth can educate and enlighten our global community about the past and the ongoing struggles we face every day. This picture of Abraham Lincoln signing the Emancipation Proclamation lies in the Library of Congress, and the artist's name is W.E. Winner. President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1, 1863, as the nation approached its third year of bloody civil war. The proclamation declared, and I quote from the National Archives, that all persons held as slaves within the rebellious states are and henceforward shall be free. That's from the National Archives. With this in mind, it is important to bring people together in order to remember the soul of our African American roots. and to raise consciousness around race and ethics. As Andrew Pickering suggests in his 2010 book, The Cybernetic Brain, Sketches of the Future, it is crucial to recognize that as futures get built up, broken down, and recycled with each phase of the conversation, collective consciousness is raised. Juneteenth is not only about history, but it's about the future. Here is a video entitled Juneteenth, The History Behind the Holiday, with Rodney Dawson, a curator of education at the Greensboro History Museum.
To understand Juneteenth, we first go back to January 1st, 1863, the day President Abraham Lincoln, with one proclamation, orders and declares that all persons held as slaves shall be free.
We were still in the midst of the Civil War, but the president, the legal president at the time, says slavery has ended. And so it depended, whoever won that war, if the North, if the Union forces win the war, they can enforce it.
It would take, however, more than 2 years for word of the Emancipation Proclamation to reach the enslaved in Texas.
People are saying that the messenger that they sent was killed. I've heard that the plantation owners got the word but didn't want to pass it on because they wanted to retain that labor. And then I've also heard where Union forces made a deal with some of these plantation owners and said, hey, we'll let you reap one more harvest.
On June 19, 1865, Union General Gordon Granger announced from this balcony in Galveston, Texas, that the Civil War had ended and the nearly 250,000 enslaved were now free. Again, 2.5 years after the proclamation. Rodney Dawson says there weren't enough Union soldiers in Texas before Granger's arrival to enforce the order. Following Granger's announcement, many of the enslaved left the state to be with the rest of their families, taking a dangerous walk to get there. Dawson refers to that as a faith walk and likens it to what we are seeing today with folks protesting against racial injustice.
That's kind of, you see the marches that we have, you see the movements that's galvanized, not just African Americans, but people of all, the entire demographic. We're taking that faith walk, and that's what Juneteenth means.
Juneteenth, June 19th, is a celebration from slavery to freedom. But Dawson says he hopes people will take the day to learn that many African Americans still don't feel free.
I hope people are educated. I hope people come. I hope it brings tolerance. I hope it inspires someone.
The Emancipation Proclamation was limited in many ways. It applied only to states that had seceded from the United States, leaving slavery untouched in loyal border states. It also left out parts of the Confederacy that had already come under Northern control. Most important, the freedom promised depended upon the North winning the Civil War. In the book, on Juneteenth, Anita Gordon Reed, 2021, explains in 1872 in Houston, 4 Black men, Richard Allen, Richard Brock, Elias Dibble, and Jack Yates, pooled their resources and raised the money to build land in the city for the express purpose, or in my words, sole purpose, of celebrating the holiday, creating Emancipation Park, one of the oldest parks in Texas. Page 134. Thank you, WFMY News. Now, I want to introduce you to Opal Lee, a pioneer and the grandmother of the now federal holiday, Juneteenth. She was born in Marshville, Texas in 1926. Opal is 98 years young. She lived in Fort Worth, Texas, in a mostly white neighborhood. When Opal was 12, a mob of 500 white men set fire to her home and burned it to the ground. There were no arrests. In the video that we're about to watch, Opal shares her narrative of how Juneteenth came about.
This is the pen that President Biden used to sign Juneteenth into law. I'm Opal Lee, and I've had this marvelous day at the White House. The young people would say, it's off the chain. I knew I was coming because Juneteenth had been made a national holiday and the president was signing the bill into law, and I was invited to the signing of that bill.
Looking out across this room, I see the advocates, the activists, the leaders who have been calling for this day for so long, including the one and only Miss Opal Lee.
Over the course of decades, she's made it her mission to see that this day came. She's walked for miles and miles, literally and figuratively, to bring attention to Juneteenth, to make this day possible.
You cannot imagine how joyful, how humble, how magnificent the whole thing has been. There may be some of you who don't know what Juneteenth is. The enslaved in Texas were told they were free for 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation freed them. They'd watch in their churches and they'd pray for freedom to come. And it finally did. When General Gordon Granger and 7,000 colored troops from New Jersey and New York made their way to Galveston, Texas. And he read General Order Number 3 that said all slaves are free. When those people came in from their labor and somebody read that to them, we started celebrating, and we've been celebrating ever since. Juneteenth is not a Texas thing. It's not a black thing. We're talking about freedom for everyone.
Thank you, Opal. With your dedication to your symbolic walk, Juneteenth is now celebrated in 49 of 50 states. It's time to explore how Juneteenth is celebrated with Mark Anthony Neal.
Can you give us a sense? I know that this has evolved over time, but what is a Juneteenth celebration in a traditional Black family look like? Is there such a thing?
It depends on where the family is and where they live. You can rest assured that it will be festive, that there will be some sort of activities that gesture towards Black spirituality. Food, of course, will play a prominent part in it, and obviously music. I think it's always an opportunity for particular Black local communities to be able to celebrate their own history within those regions as they reflect on what Juneteenth has become. And it really has taken on a much more significant role in Black communities over the last 15 to 20 years, in part, of course, because the election of Barack Obama and this kind of circulation of Black pride, if you will, in the post-Obama era, but definitely because given everything that's going on and the everyday attacks to Black freedom and Black humanity, to have one day, that could be set aside. I mean, the closest comparison is probably Kwanzaa, which is really a Black culturalist, nationalist holiday that's more of an attempt
really
to
hinting back to West Africa, in a sense,
right,
different.
as opposed to U.S. and particularly the U.S. South. I think it's taken on a greater recognition, for Black Americans in this moment to be able to celebrate and capture who they are in the world now.
And you were saying that in the last 15 to 20 years, it has really taken off. And I think, is it your sense that most Black families know Juneteenth? I mean, I think many of us in our own office were struck when it was announced that President Trump was going to hold this rally on June 19th. One of our Black colleagues on a big group Zoom call said, that's Juneteenth. What is he thinking? He's having it in Tulsa itself, which, as we know, has a historical significance for the Black community. But is it your sense that most Black families are aware of this, celebrate this, acknowledge this in some way?
I wouldn't say most. I'd probably see many Black families are aware. And definitely it has pivoted now towards younger generations of Black folks. One of the great things about the internet whether it be Google or social media, is that it really has democratized the ability to access information. And so the younger generation of folks have really been drawn to Juneteenth, right, as something to be recovered, to celebrate who they are in the world at this period of time. So to me, it's not surprising that we would see this uptick in the celebration, the acknowledgement of Juneteenth at the same time we see the emergence of things like Black Lives Matter.
So I live in the Bay Area, which is considered East Bay near San Francisco. So I want to share that there are several Juneteenth events that are taking place in my neighborhood. And I encourage you to explore what's happening in your own neighborhood and find meaningful ways to engage. In gratitude to all that watch this offering, thank you. Bye for now.